Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for May 13th, 2024. If you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Jenny Snell,
Present.
Scott O,
Here.
Rachel Holteen,
Present.
Amanda Weaver,
Here.
Corey Stites,
Here.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Dan Larson,
Present.
Leah Dozeman.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilors, in your package tonight, we have study session notes of April 15th, 2024, City Council meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2024, and special study session notes of April 22nd, 2024. Are there any changes or corrections to be noted in the minutes? Seeing none, they will stand approved with our thanks to the clerk. Are there any changes to the agenda that's presented? We will go with the agenda as published. We have several proclamations, and I'll go to the podium. I would like to invite Judy DiTullio to join me at the podium. Julie, thanks for coming tonight. I'm pleased to make a proclamation in support of Mental Health Month. Whereas good mental health is essential to overall health and emotional well-being of all children, youth, adults, and families, and promotes a healthy community. And whereas nearly 1 in 4 people in our community experience a mental health condition each year, and whereas more than 17% of individuals in our communities experience substance use disorder each year, including alcohol and drug use, and whereas the lack of awareness of where to seek support and the stigma against mental health conditions and substance abuse disorders prevent many people from accessing care, and whereas when mental health problems and substance use disorders are detected early and treated, people can recover and maintain a healthy and independent life. And whereas increased focus on the prevention of mental health conditions and substance use disorders among children, adolescents, and adults through screening and early intervention helps reduce suffering and improves lives. And whereas it is imperative that all members of our community, irrespective of age, gender expression, sexual identification, race, culture, ethnic background, education, or economic status, have equitable access to essential care support and services for mental health and substance use conditions. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge is dedicated to improving the health and well-being of our citizens and employees by increasing awareness, ending stigma, focusing on the integral role of mental health in all of our lives. Now, therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge and the Wheat Ridge City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Month and call upon all of our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our communities and resources to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, providing appropriate and accessible services for all citizens, and making mental health a priority. Dated this 13th day of May, 2024. And Julie, I'd like to give this to you, and if you'd like to say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Starker and members of City Council. Good evening. My name is Julie DiTullio, and I am the Senior Coordinator of Donor Engagement at Jefferson Center for Mental Health. On behalf of everyone at Jefferson Center, from our dedicated board and staff to the wonderful people we have the privilege to serve, I want to thank you for declaring May as Mental Health Month in the City of Wheat Ridge. Mental Health Month has been a cornerstone of advocacy since it began in 1949, serving as an important way for us to start conversations about mental health, break down stigma, raise awareness, and provide critical resources for mental health care in our community. As a nonprofit community mental health center, Jefferson Center is deeply committed to providing comprehensive mental health care, substance use treatment, and a wide range of resources to support the well-being of our community every single day. Each year, we touch the lives of more than 27,000 people, thanks to the power of partnerships with over 150 community organizations like the City of Wheat Ridge. Through these collaborations, we strive to make mental health care more accessible by meeting people where they are. Jefferson Center is grateful for the financial support we receive from the City of Wheat Ridge. This support includes funding each year for our school-based counselor program, a donation in support of our new permanent supportive housing property, Solid Ground Apartments, and ARPA funding that we will be using for our community engagement efforts through 2025. Maintaining good mental health is fundamental to overall well-being, and it's something that affects us all. Mental health conditions are common and treatable. In fact, 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health condition in any given year, and challenges in life can impact anyone's mental health. Despite the prevalence of these challenges, many people will not seek help due to stigma or a lack of awareness about available resources. This is where your support for Mental Health Month becomes truly invaluable. By raising awareness and combating stigma, we can create a community where seeking mental health support is met with empathy and understanding. As stigma fades, more people will feel empowered to seek the care they need, reducing suffering and strengthening our community's well-being. Your support is absolutely vital, and we deeply appreciate your recognition of Mental Health Month and your ongoing partnership with Jefferson Center. None of the important work we do would be possible without your support. Thank you once again for your commitment to mental health awareness and for standing alongside us in creating a healthier, more resilient community. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Julie. All right, take care of this guy. I'd like to invite Commander Betsy Saylor to join me at the podium. Hello, Commander, how are you? How are you? Nice to see you. I'm pleased to make a proclamation for a national, we also have Officer Matthew Pochaki?
Yes.
That's pretty close?
Okay, that's spot on.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much. In support of National Police Week and National Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the people of the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado have shared their concerns and support following the tragic assault of Officer Alan Fisher, who received life-threatening injuries while on duty on April 13th, 2022. And whereas it is important to recognize and honor the sacrifice made by those who were injured or who die in the line of duty. And whereas it is important that everyone know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of our police department, and that our local law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve our community and safeguarding life and property by providing protection against violence and disorder, and by shielding the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas, over the course of the past 55 years, the police department of the city of Wheat Ridge has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which tirelessly provides a vital public service in partnership with the law-abiding members of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council, call on all of those living and working in Wheat Ridge, and upon all of our community's patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 13 through 17, 2024 as National Police Week, honoring law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to our community, and in so doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all the members of our community. I further call upon the community to observe May 15th, 2024 as National Police Officers Memorial Day, to honor these police officers through their courageous deeds who have lost their lives or who have been injured in the performance of their duties, dated this 13th day of May, 2024. I'd like to present this to you. And would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'll let him go first.
Okay, please.
My name is Matthew Pachaki, and I am a City of Wheat Ridge Patrol Officer. And I have to say thank you to all the council members, to the city manager, and to, of course, Mayor Starker, and above all, the citizens of Wheat Ridge. I'm grateful to be able to have the honor and the privilege every day to be able to come to work, to be able to serve, and to try and help make this community a better place. Without the support of the citizens, the city as a whole, I don't think that the City of Wheat Ridge Police Department would be what it is today. And that's a place where I'm proud every day to come to work. And I really hope that I make a difference in the community. And I'm grateful for you all. Thank you.
I would echo what Officer Pachaki said today, and I just on behalf of the men and women of the police department, I think I speak for all of them when I say it is an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Wheat Ridge every day. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you this morning also.
Good to see you.
Officer was helping with my vehicle that had been stolen earlier in the week and found and returned. We've already got Director Maria DeAndre here and her Public Works staff coming up for a resolution in support of National Public Works Week. So I'm going to give it just a second, make sure everybody can make it up to the front. I'm going to need the wide-angle lens tonight, so thank you all for joining us today. Whereas public works service provided in our community and are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support and understanding of informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as streets, traffic signals and signs, lighting, bridges, storm sewers, and drainage. And whereas the health and safety and quality of life of this community greatly depends upon these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, and maintenance, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge Public Works Department manages all assets in the public right-of-way, including streets, street lights, traffic signals, drainage facilities, as well as public buildings and the city's vehicle and equipment fleet in a safe, efficient, innovative, and environmentally responsible manner, utilizing our dedicated, highly skilled employees and partnerships that promote a high quality of life for the city and the public. And whereas the 31 employees of the department maintain more than 133 miles of streets, 36 miles of storm sewers, 9,500 street names and traffic control signs, 45 traffic signals, 850 street and pedestrian lights, 190,000 square feet of building and 225 vehicles and large equipment, and plan, design, and oversee construction of all capital improvements projects within the city's right-of-way, along with other critical infrastructure activities. It's a lot. Whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council do hereby proclaim the week of May 19 through 25, 2024 as National Public Works Week in the City of Wheat Ridge, and I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. That, I would like to present you with this. I'd like to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Mayor. On behalf of the department, thank you for this recognition and recognizing all of the hard work that our public works officials do behind the scenes. I think first I'll introduce all the staff that are with me here tonight. This is just a sampling, I think. So from my left to the right, Dan Byers, who's with our facilities manager, John Madrano, who's our administrative assistant, Chris Hill, our maintenance technician 3, Daryl Causer, maintenance technician 2, Lane Causer, maintenance technician 2, Bruce Eddings, our facilities maintenance technician, John Vitry, maintenance technician 4, and finally Jim Kelly, who's our operations supervisor. Thank you all for joining me today. But really, they are always behind the scenes. Oftentimes, if the road is plowed, if the water turns on and the toilet flushes, you never think about Public Works. When any of those things don't happen, then that's when you call us. So we're really happy that we're able to serve the community every single day, and again, build upon the quality of life that we're developing here within the city of Wheat Ridge. Thank you so much.
Why don't we get everybody, get everybody, so, go in front of council. They like to get in on the photos too, so. We will now go to our public's right to speak. This is an opportunity for members of the public to come and speak to their city council on any item that is on the agenda. We will also at this time take public comment on our special study session that is happening after, and that is to speak only on items on that agenda. So we have no one joining us online, but and when I call your name, if you'd please come to the podium and give us your first name or last name, and then tell us whether you live or work in Wheat Ridge. Our first speaker is Russell Stillman and Larry Matthews on deck. And I'll mention that you'll have 3 minutes.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with everybody. And also, it's appropriate, the officers are gone now, it's a police appreciation. I represent Sub and Sam's convenience store located on 44th Avenue, and it's always free coffee and ice cold soda pops to our people in the blue. We are proud supporters of our local police. But anyways, I'm here to talk about the tobacco licensing law, and mainly the word retailer, and how the law affects people. Now, first of all, we agree the law was made to discourage tobacco products to our younger people, younger generation, which we totally agree with. The law, as we assumed, the word retailer, we assumed it was for the business, and not the actual individual owner. And how it affects us is the owner, who I work for, is in a position to sell his business. He's having health problems. He built the business up over years, to eventually sell, to plan for his retirement. This, cigarette law basically ruins his retirement. And I'm here before the council today to advocate for a change of the law. Instead of the word retailer, the individual person, we would like the retailer for the business. I think the results will still be the same. It'll just take a longer period of time, whereas the business either ceases being a convenience store or gas station that it relies heavily upon tobacco sales, or if zoning change or anything else, that would end that particular retail business and not just the individual. That wouldn't have, because the law has, the way it is now, is devastating effects on business owners and their plans for retirement, their plans for the future. If we could just change the word retailer to represent the business instead of the individual, it would be appropriate. And the reason I'm saying this is because a gas station convenience store, if you take away their ability to sell tobacco products, it will never sell. Nobody will buy it. That is a large portion of the sales. The business relies on tobacco sales, and you're basically dooming the business owner and the business for any future business endeavors. And one example I would like to give, or an analogy, would be Mayor Starker in his restaurant. I used to live on Chase Street, right behind his restaurant, and I visited many times. Love his restaurant, but if he was planning eventually, when he retires, to either sell the restaurant or pass it on to family, perhaps, he's eventually going to move on from the restaurant. If you took away his liquor license, that would dramatically affect the sale or his plans or his future endeavors for his restaurant that I know he's worked very hard to build up, because I remember when that property was before his restaurant. It was a terrible property. But does that red light mean my time is up?
That means your
I
time-
appreciate your time, and once again, a shout out to our local police force. We are strong supporters of the blue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Matthews, I see that you're signed up to speak on the Lutheran thing, and we're going to have a Lutheran resolution on that as item number 7
I'll do it once.
in our agenda. May I have you wait until we get to that agenda item?
I'd like to do it now.
Well, our rules really say that we're only talking about items that are not on the
It's on the
agenda.
agenda for the
It-
city council meeting for the resolution.
Well, yeah.
As the mayor was explaining, the council rules are public's right to speak on items that are not on the agenda, because then when your item number comes up on the agenda, then you can come and speak at that time on that item.
You've changed that then. Okay. Well, when do I come?
You come on number 7.
Okay, at that time?
Yes, sir.
Instead of, okay, happy to do it.
Thank you very much.
Kind of deja vu here. Thank you.
We're looking forward to hearing you just a little bit later in the agenda. Mr. DiTullio, Jerry DiTullio.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jerry DiTullio, 32nd in Newland and Wheat Ridge. I wanted to echo, first of all, the good news and the good work that Public Works does in the city of Wheat Ridge and the police department. Ever since I've been involved in the city, they've done a great job all the time with Public Works and police department. And what I wanted to bring up tonight is, as you notice, we experienced a lot of windstorms and snowstorms the last few months, and you really never notice power lines until you don't have any power. And so I wanted to encourage the city council, as you move forward with the reconstruction of 38th or 44th, I know it's going to be expensive, and you have the franchise agreement, and you probably have some money from 2J, but to underground those power lines now while you're doing 38th Avenue or 44th, it really benefits public safety for the future, aesthetics for the future, and any access of anybody that maybe has a disability getting around those poles. So I encourage, Patrick and council and mayor to really look at undergrounding those as you can, to make it's a one-time deal, and then it's a lot better for the community. Every opportunity has a shelf life, And this is the one time that you could actually do something on 38th, 44th, whatever street that you're working on. Get those buried for the public safety. And, you know, when the 38th Avenue was being reconstructed from Wadsworth to Kipling, it was contentious as it was. They missed the opportunity to underground those power lines, and they're there now. And it's just one more eyesore along that street that you have to look at. And also, when the power and the wind, comes right now, those power lines come down, that's a problem. So I wanted to encourage council to really look at undergrounding as much as you can, using the 2J funds and also the franchise agreement with Excel. So, thank you.
Thank you. And we had no, that's all of the speakers I have signed up to speak, and we had no speakers joining us online. So that will conclude our public's right to speak. We will go to agenda item number 1. Mayor Pro Tem Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 07-2024, an ordinance amending sections 11-51, 11-52.5, 11-53, 11-53.5, 11-55, and 11-56 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the composition of the Wheat Ridge Liquor Licensing Authority and making conforming amendments in connection therewith. At issue, the city has an 8-member city council appointed liquor licensing authority, LLA, that is vested with the authority to grant and refuse liquor licenses and other types of applications and permits, and hold show cause hearings for alleged violations, all in the manner provided by law. Over the past few years, the 8-member board has struggled at times to reach quorum, delaying Wheat Ridge businesses from obtaining licenses and other resolutions in timely manner.
Thank you. This is a ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Our senior deputy city clerk, Margaret Greer.
Thank you. I don't have a formal presentation tonight. I just wanted to remind you that we did have a formal presentation at the April 1st study session, where council unanimously agreed to move this forward for first and second reading. The changes within the ordinance itself remove the 8-member resident board and replace it with a qualified administrative hearing officer. Qualified, according to our ordinance, means that it's an attorney that can work in the state of Colorado and has had at least 3 years of experience. Some other changes, smaller changes that the ordinance makes is we've added to the definition of investigator to include our community service officer. We've added Vintner's Restaurants, which is now a legal place for retailers to purchase alcohol for their tastings permits. And we changed the ordinance so that council sets the fee schedule, where in the past the board set the fee schedule. And Morgan Richards, the chair of the board, could not be here tonight, but she did want me to pass on that she was 100% behind this endeavor. We did contact or try to make contact with all of the board members, let them know of the proposed changes. Most of them were 100% behind it. There was only one that we didn't reach. And Mayor Pro Tem Stites is looking at me because his mother said that he took great pleasure in firing her from the board, so. But I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. We would normally go to before we go to questions of council, we will go to the public to speak on this. I have no one signed up to speak. So do we have questions of council, of staff on this item before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and the Mayor Pro Tem Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 07-2024, an ordinance amending sections 11-51, 11-52.5, 11-53, 11-53.5, 11-55, and 11-56 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the composition of the Wheat Ridge Liquor Licensing Authority and making conforming amendments in connection therewith. Order it published and then to take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Is there discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank everybody who's on the Liquor Licensing Authority for all of their hard work and dedication over the last, however long they've been on for their terms. It's any board or commission that you serve on is a lot of work and a lot of time, and I know that these guys meet pretty regularly, so I appreciate that. And sorry, Mom.
But thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Would the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill Number 08-2024, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 10-840 West 41st Place from Agricultural 1 or A1 to Residential 1B R-1B. This is case number WZ-24-03. Would you like me to read the issue?
If you would, please.
The owner of the property at 10-840 West 41st Place is requesting approval of a zone change from Agricultural 1 or A1 to Residential 1B R-1B. The zone change will result in a zoning that encourages investment in the site and will enable the land use to become more conforming with the zoning.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item? Councilor Weaver.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 08-2024, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 10-840 West 41st Place from Agricultural 1 to Residential 1 on first reading, order it published by title and in full on the city's website as provided by the Home Rule Charter. Public hearing set for Monday, June 10th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. This will take us to item number 3. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill Number 09-2024, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at parcel ID 39-193-01-010 from Agricultural 1A1 to Industrial Employment, i.e. case number WZ-24-04. At issue, Cogent Companies is requesting approval of a zone change from Agricultural 1A1 to Industrial Employment, i.e. to allow the site to be utilized for outdoor storage. The zone change will result in a zoning designation that would allow for use of the property unless and until it is developed as a right-of-way.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading. It is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. It is quasi-judicial, so please note that, councilors. May I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill Number 09-2024, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at parcel ID 39-193-01-010 from Agricultural 1 to Industrial Employment on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, June 10th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Ohm. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 24-2024, resolution approving a temporary revocable access license agreement with 44th and Wadsworth LLC. At issue, design and construction of the improved Wadsworth project necessitated the installation of a raised median on 44th Avenue, which prohibits left turns from westbound 44th Avenue to a private driveway behind the First Bank building. In response to many requests from the public, staff has coordinated with the property management company to open an existing access point for Van Street at 43rd Avenue to allow temporary access to the shopping center and a private drive through the shopping center's parking lot. the temporary license documents, the terms of the agreement. The city will enter into contract to perform the necessary work to open up this access within the next month or so. Funding will come from the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal Authority.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
No presentation, but our Public Works Director is here for any questions you may have. Our Public Works Director is here for any questions you may
Okay,
have.
thank you very much. This is agenda item number 4. I have no one signed up to speak on this. Are there any questions of council? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, very excited that this is moving forward. Can you give a little bit better description of what the access is going to look like in terms of right-of-way? Is it big enough for 2 cars? As someone on my bike, I saw that they've actually kind of cut it away. I can actually get through it right now on my bike. But I know it's going to be heavily used also by people walking and riding their bikes since that access is not available technically on Wadsworth. So if you could talk just a little bit about sort of the right-of-way width and the multimodal aspect. And then the second question, is there going to be any directional signage? Because the inclination is to go, straight into the back of the building. So are there going to be, signs that are directing traffic to go? And then as that traffic diverts, is there any need for, I know it's a parking lot, but I just want to be mindful of, we're diverting traffic into a place that wasn't necessarily designed for this type of traffic. So would just like a little bit better idea of what the holistic design and implementation looks like.
Certainly, thank you. Yeah, the intent is that this is a temporary connection. So we'll allow for both ingress and egress from the parking lot behind the Ross store at the corner there on the north side of the shopping center. So the allowance for bicycles or pedestrians would just be in the lanes. So we're not building any more sidewalk, we're not striping any bike lanes per se. So there will be room to basically get in and out with a car. But the area, I believe, the width of that driveway is approximately 28 feet. So there will be additional room beyond the typical 20 feet that's needed for roadway or for 2 lanes of traffic. The signage that we'll do, we'll have a variable message board for westbound traffic on 44th Avenue to direct people to hopefully turn at the street light or the traffic signal at Vance on 44th. And something it'll probably say like access to businesses, including First Bank or something like that, to encourage people to turn at the light and start to make that movement known that that's back there. And then we'll have signage within the parking lot to direct them to Amici's, to First Bank, some sort of temporary signage there so that they don't drive behind the shopping center building itself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon me, Councilor Ohm.
Yeah, I just had one question as far as access. So it looks like there's a sidewalk that generally goes south, but that won't connect, right?
Not at this time. So the intent is to build a new roadway through the parcel just to the north of the shopping center, and that will have sidewalks on it when that gets built in its permanent configuration. So this time, we're not adding any walk.
Will there be some type of, is that what Councilor Hulteen just asked about having signage so somebody doesn't come down that sidewalk and think that they have access?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, we can put something to direct them in another fashion, pedestrians.
Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for that suggestion.
Further questions? Councilor Weaver.
Will it be lit back there?
I don't know if the intersection has is it an overhead street light or not, but we're not planning to install anything at this time.
Okay, my perception is it's pretty dark back there. I'm just, without striping or anything for pedestrians, it just seems like it would be worthwhile to at least light it a little bit better, because there will be some difficulty coming around the building into the dark.
Certainly,
Just
we
a
can
thought.
look at that and see if we can install some temporary lighting
Yeah.
or enhance it in some
Just-
way over there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilor Hulteen.
I can actually speak to that a little bit. I ride my bike around that corner a lot at night, and there is street lighting along Vance and along 43rd. So at least on the improved right away, there's good lighting. And then in the back of the building is actually pretty well lit. So the only sort of dark passage is really along that north side of the Ross building. That is where there is not lighting. But actually the roadway is fairly well lit, as is the back of the building. Because, riding around at night.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none. Counselor Ohm, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 24-2024, resolution approving a temporary revocable access license agreement with 44th and Wadsworth LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Counselor Hulteen, is that right? Okay, any discussion on the motion? Counselor Hulteen.
Thank you. I just really want to thank the city for coming forward with this solution. When that access was blocked through the construction, I will say it is probably since I've been elected, the single thing I got the most really vitriolic, angry calls, and I understand where people are coming from. It's the first time I've been called certain words on the phone. So it really impacts people, and we can all adapt over time, but that particular access to that really heavily used shopping center really has impacted a lot of people. So I just really appreciate that the city listened when we brought it forward from our constituents, and I'm excited for our neighbors to benefit from this investment. And just thank you, Urban Renewal, for being part of our solution to a lot of our problems, and really excited to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for your expediency on this. This is a really important to my constituents. I've gotten some phone calls about access and some confusion, and so this will go a long way. Thank you. Please keep us posted on the timeframe when it's going to be built.
Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just echo what the other counselor said. This is one of those examples of the city listening to the citizens and getting it right. So really appreciate that, staff and everybody for involved. Thank you.
Counselor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to say on behalf of Urban Renewal Authority, I said on that board that when this project was brought to us, we felt that it was a good use of our monies, and we look forward to being able to alleviate some of the traffic issues there.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes,
could,
sir.
real quick, before there's vote, just give you a quick update on the permanent solution. We did have a meeting this afternoon with the property owner who owns that vacant property there. It's Wazee Partners. They built the senior affordable building just to the east. And the whole intent was for when they were going to build their next phase of residential on the vacant property and where Panda King was, they were responsible for building the cut through 43rd Avenue that would go out to Vance to the light. Unfortunately, that project's been delayed for several years. It's still delayed. We had a meeting this morning. The project's not, as you know, construction costs are up and inflation's up. So they're having a difficult time making that project pencil, so they are taking a second look at it. And so that's why it's been delayed. That road should have been in before the median was put in Wadsworth, or 44th, but the project was delayed, so that's why we're doing this temporary fix.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 5. Counselor Larson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a bid. It's a motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payment of $125,212.50 to CEM Sales and Service for replacement of the lap pool filters at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center. Tonight at issue, the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center lap pool filters have sustained severe damage to an internal manifold. While a temporary fix was installed by staff to extend the life of the filters, the temporary fix is failing. The filters require immediate repair to safeguard the integrity of the lap pool and to prevent interruptions in service, possibly including a long-term closure. This motion is to award a contract to CEM Sales and Service to complete this essential work.
Thank you. This will be a bid motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have any further staff report on this item?
No presentation, but are you going to do you have some questions? Yep. You want to come up? Let me introduce. This is our new pool manager, Sarah Heistoffer, and then Susie Anderson, our parks manager, is also in the back, or rec manager. But Sarah's been on for 6 months, maybe? 3 or 4 months. So welcome, Sarah, first of all, but she wanted to come tonight and introduce herself. But if you have any questions, Sarah's here.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and looks like we've got some work that we need to do on the lap pools. Those get a lot of good use, I think, so it's good to have them in good working order. So thank you very much for coming and joining us tonight and all your work at the pool.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. I have no one signed up to speak on this item. I will go to questions from council. Are there questions from council? I'll start with Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just three things, and I'll bet you're the right person to answer this. Can you discuss what caused this to happen?
To my best understanding, during a routine cleaning process, some pressure built up inside the pipe and it burst a hole inside the pipe that contains this manifold. That occurred 7 or 8 years ago. So the temporary fix has sustained us for a really long time, but that temporary fix has been reinstalled and is failing. So, like I said, I started 3 or 4 months ago. I'm not totally sure exactly what occurred in that process, but during that routine process,
Right.
damage was sustained.
And a 5-year temporary fix is a pretty good fix.
Absolutely.
The other question I have is, there was an indication from the bidder that they may not be able to meet the schedule that we set out?
We set the schedule to be from August 19th through August 30th. That would extend our closure week at the rec center for 1 week. I have worked with this agency before at another location. They were able to meet that, but they were understandably concerned about making sure that they meet the deadline when we set that out to our residents so that they understand what's accessible to them and when. The concern on this is that we're asking for an emergency fix. We're looking at a 12-week lead time on getting our filters. So if we get this approved tonight and they start the process tomorrow, we'll get that just in time, assuming that there are no delays on our manufacturer's end. So that's where the concern is, and ultimately that concern is in place regardless of who wins the bid.
Yeah, thank you. And then the last question I have is, this is covered by a warranty. 1 year, 5 years, temporary fix length?
That's a great question. It would be the manufacturer's warranty, and I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
Great. Thank you.
Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for being here tonight. It seems that there is some funding that's being moved from what was earmarked for some other corrections in our pools, and I'm just wondering if the gel coating on the water slides, and the replacement of the diving board, if those are things that you guys will be looking to fund in the 2025 budget to be able to have that done?
Yes, we'll be deferring that request until 2025. The gel coats on the water slides is preventative maintenance that should get done on a routine basis, and our diving board has been damaged and closed for several years. Ultimately, the lap filters are what allow us to operate the pool at all. So if we deferred this maintenance on behalf of our preventative maintenance and the replacement of the diving board, we do run the risk of prolonged closure and inability to operate. So the choice was made to defer that until 2025. Great, thank you.
Are there additional questions from staff on this item? Seeing none, Councilor Larson, may I have a motion on this item? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payment of $125,212.50 to CEM Sales and Service for a replacement of the lap pool filters at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. As a swimmer, I appreciate that the fix has stood for so long. And as a swimmer who was really impacted by our short staffing and the things, and by the way, I think we've done a phenomenal job and you've done a really good job recruiting. During the closure, especially since it's an extended closure, in the past, we have been able to we've reached out to Golden to make an agreement with Golden to be able to use their pool. And I'm hoping that's something that we can do during that time, because swimming, when your regular activity gets disrupted for an extended time, it actually is sometimes really hard to get it back into rhythm. So with the extended closure of the pool, I see Susie has her hand raised.
Susie,
Yeah.
come to the mic, please.
We do have that set up with the city of Lakewood. So Golden's closure week is the same week as ours this year, and so we can't use Golden, but Lakewood's, one of the Lakewood centers is going to do that for us. So I think it's Whitlock, yes.
Okay.
There's also that possibility of opening up the outdoor pool for lap swimming during that time frame, is our lap pool.
Okay, so great. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 6. Councilor Hulteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce resolution number 25-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for an open space reverter release with Jefferson County, moving an existing reverter from the town center park to the green at 38th. At issue, the city purchased property for the town center park in 1982 using Jefferson County open space funding. Because open space funding was used, a Jefferson County open space reverter was placed on the town center park, which restricts the use of that property to public park and recreation purposes. The town center park is no longer a viable option for a community park due to a number of factors, including commercial redevelopment in the area. In the meantime, the city is currently developing the green at 38th as a new community plaza and park on 38th Avenue, within a few blocks of the town center park. To decommission the town center park, Jefferson County Open Space has agreed to release the reverter and move it to the green at 38th. This resolution provides the mayor with the authority to sign the associated agreement with Jefferson County to complete the effort of transferring the reverter.
Thank you. This is a resolution of the council that is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have any further staff presentation on this item?
Yeah, the issue statement is pretty succinct, and Mr. Dahl's been helping out with the Jefferson County Open Space attorneys, and maybe I'll let him first speak about that process.
Thank you. As many of the council probably know, Jefferson County, when they provide money for the acquisition of a park or open space facility, they require always that there be a reverter on that property, so if it's ever converted to some other use, that it reverts to the county, and for the very good reason that the money that's being used to acquire it is money that was earmarked at the county for those purposes. And that's a common thing, and you're probably aware that that is a feature of the various parks and open space recreation areas that were acquired in whole or in part with open space funds. I'll also say that Jefferson County Open Space has been pretty flexible over the years, not only with the city, but with others in Jefferson County, other municipalities, when the change in use is such that it really makes better sense to have that Jefferson County reverter interest move to a park that's more like a park. And that's exactly the circumstance here. Town Center Park really doesn't function well for that purpose and would require quite an expenditure of the city to turn it into that, whereas the green is headed in that direction and is really much more available for and proper for that. In order to allow the reverter to get moved, Jefferson County has a process, and you have to do what we're doing here, which is to agree in an agreement that you will move that reverter. And then subsequently, I've also negotiated the language that will go on the deed for the green property, inserting a reverter for the benefit of Jefferson County Open Space. And I've worked with the attorney for the district and Jefferson County Open Space to achieve that. It was made slightly more complex by virtue of the fact that there's a small part of the green property that in 1888 was the subject of a dedication by, or a grant or a gift by the then property owner to the school district to be used for school purposes. And there was a reverter on that, oddly enough. So we have a reverter on a reverter, but that is why there's language in this agreement that says, look, if it's not used for park purposes, that it will continue to be used for school purposes. And we're able to say, by virtue of the fact that we're working with the school district and the parking lot, that this small portion is still being used for school purposes and doesn't trigger the 1888 reverter either. But Jefferson County Open Space was interested in how that got articulated so that it didn't end up just in the school's hands and not in theirs if it all fell apart. So that's why the language is a little more complex. Sorry for taking you down that rabbit hole, but I had to go down that rabbit hole with the attorneys for the district and Jefferson County. But to their credit, they worked with me to find a solution that was fairly elegant. We started out with things that are a lot more complex, and we ended up with what we have.
Yeah, Mr. Dahl was very instrumental in getting this done, so I want to thank him for that. It was a lot of work, but also thank the school district and Jefferson County Open Space. They're very supportive of this. Actually, the Jefferson County Open Space manager lives in this area, and she uses the green, and she's very excited for this new park to come. So I think we have a lot of happy people out there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Dahl. Let us see if we can dig ourselves out of this hole. I don't have anybody from the public signed up to speak on this, so I will go to questions from council. Are there any questions from staff from council on this item before I ask for a motion? Seeing none. Councilor Hulteen, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 25, 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for an open space reverter release with Jefferson County, moving an existing reverter from Town Center Park to the green at 38th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Dozeman. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Rome.
Yeah, just a big thank you to staff and Mr. Dahl and Jeffco Open Space and the Jeffco District for the opportunity to, have the green. The town center I've driven by many times and scratched my head of why was it put in that it doesn't work, and so I'm really excited about the green happening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually surprised to learn that Town Center was not an older park. I assumed that that park was something historic, which is why it was where it was. We've heard from a lot of constituents over the last several years since that park has been fenced up for a variety of reasons, and just really appreciate the investment in new and sort of more community forward green spaces. And one of the things Councilor Ohm and I have been looking at in partnership with staff is just looking at the parks in District 2. And while on paper we have a lot of parks, a lot of them aren't actually very usable parks. We've got Johnson Park, Happiness Gardens, one of my favorite parks, but it's not really a green space, Town Center Park. So just really investing within the district to move the reverter from one sort of underutilized park to really invest in a vibrant destination. District 2 is very grateful, and I am glad that we're able to get this done. And thank you to staff. And also want to thank Councilmember Dozeman for really being helpful for getting the green moving forward too. So thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. That will bring us to agenda item number 7. Councilor Hoppy, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 26-2024, a resolution initiating a legislative zone change for the Lutheran Legacy Campus. At issue, in less than 3 months, the Lutheran Hospital will move from its current location to Clear Creek Crossing. The city prepared for this move and for the redevelopment opportunity it creates by adopting the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan in October of 2021. A vision change and an amendment to the city charter, or a zone change and an amendment to the city charter, are both required to realize the community vision outlined in the master plan. This resolution takes the first step in formally advancing a city-initiated zone change of the Lutheran Legacy Campus.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Lauren Mikulak, Community Development Director.
Director Mikulak.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. I just want to make a few more comments for the record. You'll recall that we discussed this course of action, among others, recently at the April 8th study session. There are a few reasons that I'm recommending this resolution to proceed. First, I think it puts the city in a proactive position instead of waiting for a developer to propose a zone change or to propose their interpretation of our city's master plan. Second, I'm concerned about the duration of time that the campus might sit underutilized once the hospital moves. And I do think that a city-initiated zone change could reduce the amount of time with the size and the location of that campus. I think the more active that property, the better for our whole community. And third, a city-initiated zone change really allows for a community conversation on this topic instead of isolating that conversation to this room during public hearings. So after last month's study session, we had a booth at the Let's Talk Open House on April 16th, and we saw an uptick on our project page on What's Up Wheat Ridge. We actually had 1,000 visitors to the Lutheran page on What's Up Wheat Ridge in April. I was surprised and happy. If we proceed with the city-initiated zone change, a few things would happen. Number one, we'd sort of bring a full court press to public engagement and information through the course of the summer, both on the master plan and on what these next steps could entail. Second, our staff is completing an audit of the master plan, and we would begin translating those ideas and recommendations to zoning regulations. And third, we'd present those draft regulations to the public and also at a series of study sessions, both with this council and planning commission. As we talked about last month, the master plan outlines a vision that relies on a zone change and a charter change. We knew that when we adopted the master plan. Those two actions, I think, are related. The zoning would require the charter change, and I think the public would want to see the zoning regulations in order to potentially support a charter change. We're already getting the question, if the property was exempted from the height cap, what would the maximum height be? And that is exactly the kind of question that gets answered by zoning. Our current answer has been not taller than the existing hospital, but I think we owe people probably a better, more refined answer than that. So again, if we, one more thing. We have been keeping the property owners informed. The hospital team and their brokers are well aware of this course of action. Certainly, a city can do a legislative rezoning with or without that kind of support, but they are aware and supportive. The hospital team is hoping to identify a potential buyer this summer, and we think that timing aligns really well, where we can craft zoning regulations and seek input from the public, from council, from planning commission, and if the timing works, from a potential buyer. So they wouldn't be driving the process, but they could be a part of the process as well. We know there are still a lot of questions, more questions than answers at this point in the process. The purpose of the resolution tonight is just officially commence a legislative zone change process, and we'll have a lot more activity this summer and fall. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to questions from council, I want to invite members of the public to speak. Our first speaker is Mr. Larry Matthews, and if you'd please come to the podium, and thank you for your forbearance. Please give us your first name and your last name and tell us whether you live and or work in Wheat Ridge.
Hi, deja vu, like I said. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm Larry Matthews, and I live in the city of Wheat Ridge and former council member. I was looking over the agenda for tonight, and I wanted to make a few observations and comments on item number 7. If I had a title for this, it would be, for you new members, the pitfalls of development, and for all the people out in TV land, or you don't always get what you see. My first comment would be under the background section here. It says the perimeter should serve as a buffer and transition between the campus and existing adjacent neighborhoods. Please note that it says should. Should does not mean shall. Item 2 there, future development should integrate existing assets into the greatest extent possible, such as the chapel, blue house, and trail along the mountain ditch. Again, should does not mean shall. The interior shall be afforded more flexibility in terms of land use and height. I've heard rumors that we're going to approach a charter change to allow a 100-foot building in that area. Be careful of what you wish for and make sure you watch the language. If the charter amendment comes out and says campus only, that's one thing. Will it talk about the number of buildings that could be built 100 feet high there? Or will the charter amendment come out and say citywide? Be careful of what you wish for. Under the next page, city-initiated rezoning may be made with or without consent from a affected property owners. Neighbors may not have any say, so I wish everyone to be well aware of that. Staff has analyzed the master plan, and what I want to make everybody aware of, and this is where what you see isn't necessarily what you're going to get. I'm referring back to the Lucky's development when I was on council. They showed us a pretty picture of the development at Lucky's, and on the south side of the Lucky's building, which is now the pickleball, they showed us a nice little subdivision of townhomes. Well, they said this is what we plan to develop here, and so they requested an MUN development because it would be convenient for them. Well, anybody see any townhomes there next to the pickleball store now? As soon, when that disappeared, I asked what happened. They said, well, once you've made it MUN, they could change it to anything they wanted to within the MUN guidelines. And there were hundreds of options. So be careful what you wish for. And so I urge everybody to pay attention, come to all the study sessions, and there's going to be one this afternoon. Come to all the open houses and make sure you're well informed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rosemarie Bowend. And Margie, we will not set the timer.
Very briefly, my name is Rosemarie Bowden. I live at 3535 Dudley Street in the home that was built in 1932 for the Administrator of the hospital. We've preserved it, and it seems like we're in this day and age where we just tear down everything. We don't care. We're just very, very concerned about more density and the height of buildings. Do I really want someone looking down on my house and seeing everything that we do? And think about energy. Have we ever thought about energy? Do any of you have basements in your house where they're nice and cool and we live in our basements and we've retreated? What is Wheat Ridge doing now? You guys just continue to improve 3, 4, 5 stories. What do we need up there? Air and heat all year round. So no matter where the energy comes from, do we respect it? Are we using it to the best of our ability? We don't want to lose our privacy, and we're obviously going to, because we're probably going to turn into what happened at St. Anthony's. Don't you think? That's probably what's going to happen. It's going to look just like what they did at St. Anthony's. Just make me cry to think of that's going to happen. Personally, our neighbors, we feel like we need more parks and more open space. When you talk about rezoning, I don't even know what they're saying. Are you rezoning to a research center? What are we zoning? You haven't even mentioned that tonight. What are we voting on to rezone? To what? To parks? That's what we'd like, parks and more space. We watch the multitude of people that walk on the campus grounds day after day after day, and that's probably going to be taken away from our people. You might have known what happened at Applewood Golf Course. People rose up and said, let's keep it. That was going to be developed into 300 or 400 residences. Can we possibly turn this into parks? Please let the residents have a voice in what happens to the campus, please. That's basically it. But you haven't said what you're going to rezone it to. Can anybody answer that question? Rezone it to what?
We don't know the process to start. It starts the process. It just starts the rezoning process, and there'll be,
Well,
as
that's
Ms.
what the
Mikulak
people
mentioned, there'll be tons of public engagement and process to determine what that zoning should be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all of the speakers I have signed up to speak on this item. Are there questions from council or staff on this item? Mayor Pro Tem Stites?
Just want to ask the question one more time, just because it's been asked several times and I'm not sure that everybody's clear on it. Does this tonight rezone the property to mixed use all the way across?
No. To do a legislative rezoning, a resolution must be passed by city councils to start the process. And the process is, as Ms. Mikulak outlined earlier. So there'll be a very extensive process before any rezoning is had, and there'll be public hearings, So tonight starts the process.
One more question, because I know it's been said a couple times, there's a lot of rumors going around. Where could somebody go right now to find all the information on the project so that there wouldn't be rumors and they could find all the information and answer all those questions?
Sure. Go to What's Up Wheat Ridge. The master plan is on there. Pretty much everything you need to know about the master planning process and what's going on with the Lutheran Legacy Campus right now is on whatsupwheatridge.com. Thank you.
Additional. Oh, Mr. Dahl.
Thank you very much. With council's indulgence, the resolution does what it is intended to do and should do under the city-initiated rezoning code section. That code section does, though, say that the resolution, or that the part of the action tonight is to refer the matter to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and recommendation, which is really the start of this public engagement process that has been mentioned. And I see in the resolution itself, it initiates the zoning change, but doesn't include that language. Now, we would still, of course, refer it to the Planning Commission, but it would be helpful if, when we're ready for the motion, we were able to add that phrase and refers the same to the Planning Commission for public hearing and recommendation, because that is in fact the process. It's what we'll do. I think it might be helpful also, given the concerns about public engagement and awareness, that the public's aware, and we'll say it in this resolution, that the first step is in fact a Planning Commission hearing and a recommendation from them. So when we're ready for that motion, we just add, is it Councilmember Hoppy that's doing that?
Correct. She's making notes now, and we're
That's
gonna make sure
great.
that
If you add at the end of where it says as shown on Exhibit A, and then just add, and refers the same to the Planning Commission for public hearing and recommendation. It's wonderful. Thank you for your indulgence. Sorry I didn't catch this before it went into the packet, but that will help.
Okay, we're digging you out of this hole too. Are there any further questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, just a minute, we do have one. Counselor Hulteen.
Yeah, there's only two H's now, but it's still. So, and just for clarification, I think you said this, Lauren, but so the initiation of the legislative rezoning, you would be using the currently adopted master plan as your guidance, so that public engagement, publicly informed master plan that was adopted and amended into the city, that is the basis of it. So it's not starting from scratch from some crazy idea, but it's actually starting with guidance from our publicly informed and engaged plan, right?
Yes, that's correct. The purpose of this summer's engagement and crafting of the zoning is not to revisit the vision and recommendations of that plan. We'll use that as a basis and then seek to have a very transparent process so the public can endorse the fact that the zoning aligns with that previously adopted master plan. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions of staff on this item? Hearing none, Counselor Hoppy, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 26-2024, a resolution initiating a legislative zone change for the Lutheran Legacy Campus and refers the same to the Planning Commission for a public hearing recommendation.
There's a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I appreciate the staff for, and Lauren for coming forward with the recommendations at our study session a couple weeks ago on this. I really appreciate being able to do this more publicly than we would if this was a privately initiated zoning change. We're going to be able to have public meetings and we're going to be able to have conversations with groups about this. And I think that's really huge for our community, because if this was a privately initiated zoning change and it was quasi-judicial, we wouldn't be able to have those conversations. So this is a much better way to do it, so that we can get out and educate the community, so we can kill some of those rumors and make sure that our community understands what's going on and that they can back this. So thank you.
Counselor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would just like to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Stites just said and add to that. This is a great way for us to get a good product, and it's because we will have out there this is the vision from our community, and this is what it's zoned for, rather than waiting for someone to come and say, oh, but we think you used this word in this sentence, so we want blank. This way, it'll be much more clear, A, and B, you can get a much higher quality developer when they know the way down the road. So, thank you.
Additional discussion on the motion? Councilor Ohm.
I just want to say thank you to staff. This is really important for our city, and I know that I have every confidence that this will be a very transparent, open dialogue, and it'll be a real win for the city. Thank you.
Okay, any additional discussion on the motion? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 8. Councilor Snell, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to approve payment to Bank of Oklahoma for 2024 principal and interest payments in the amount of $3,499,800 for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado Sales and Use Tax Revenue Bonds, Series 2017A. At issue on May 2nd of 2017, the city closed on a Series 2017A sales and use tax revenue bonds in the par amount of $30,595,000 with a net premium of $2,687,079 for a total of $33,282,079. The city's first interest payment for 2024 is due on June 1st in the amount of $249,900, and the principal and second interest payment is due December 1st in the amount of $3,249,900. Funds to cover the 2024 payments are budgeted into the 2024 2E bond fund budget.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Nothing else on this. Thank you.
Okay. I have no one, I have no one signed up to speak on this item. So I will go to questions of council. Are there questions of council for staff on this item? Seeing none, Councilor Snell, may I have a motion on agenda item number 8?
I move to approve payment to Bank of Oklahoma for 2024 principal and interest payments in the amount of $3,499,800 for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado Sales and Use Tax Revenue Bonds, Series 2017A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. That will bring us to city managers matters. Mr. Goff.
We have a special study session coming up, so I'll keep it very, very brief. Some sad news today that our Red Lobster is closing in Wheat Ridge, if you haven't heard. They're closing 80 across the country, and unfortunately, Wheat Ridge is one of them. So don't have a date on that, but just found out today. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. City Attorney's matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to elected officials matters, and we'll start with Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happiness Gardens hosted Regenerate Wheat Ridge this last Wednesday, and it was the bugs one, and it was so much fun. They had grown adults, most of them older than me, who went around and caught bugs in the dirt and looked at them under a microscope and ID'd them and then talked about their value. And it was just really, really a lot of fun. It was like being at summer camp. So just a lot of fun at Regenerate Wheat Ridge. But it kind of reminded me, it was a unifying moment. It turns out everyone loves to, look for bugs in the dirt at any age. And something I've been thinking about a lot, this is an election year, and there are a lot of things happening nationally and internationally that are really creating strong divisions between people. And in the last week, I have, through my interactions in my district, encountered people from different countries that are at war with one another and different political identities. And I just really feel strongly that here in Wheat Ridge, we are citizens of the city, and you never know what somebody's identity is or how what their relationship might be to, something that's happening in the national or international news, and how that's actually affecting their day-to-day life. And I just hope that we can act with a lot of care and compassion and understanding with our neighbors, knowing that we're all entitled to our beliefs and our opinions, and we can thoughtfully share them, but also recognize there are a lot of people whose lives are being, significantly impacted by what's going on outside of this community. So I just want us to continue to be a community that leads with compassion and care and understanding while holding a diversity of viewpoints, because it really struck me this week. I was just really shocked at just the diversity of ties to the national and international arena that we have here in this community. So be kind and be sensitive. And we had a great District 2 meeting in Happiness Gardens. And I just really want to thank, we called him Officer R because we could not pronounce his last name, but Officer R, who was there on behalf of the police department for our meeting, ended up really being our guest speaker and speaking deeply about the work that he does. And he's relatively new to the force. And he was asked by one of our constituents to share an example of how the police department is approaching mental health issues and de-escalation. And he shared the story of getting a call to a home where it was a couple, and it was a couple, or it was a mother-son. It was a mother-son. And the son was having a mental health crisis, and the police took care of the minimum that they had to, but the partner, Officer R's partner, elected to stay for an hour and a half to really talk through and make sure the mother knew what she could be doing to get assistance for her son and safe practices, and really took extraordinary time and care to ensure that what safety meant to that household was really holistic and beyond the minimum call of duty. And it was just a really compelling story. And I just want to take a minute. We tonight recognized our police department, but I was just profoundly impressed and moved by a story on Saturday morning in Happiness Gardens. And I just appreciate that our community has curiosity about what our police officers are doing to make safety part of our daily lives here. And that particular story just really stood out to me. So I just want to recognize the officers involved in that and thank our police department for valuing that type of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. This past Saturday at the Wheat Ridge Center for Music and Arts, there was the Indigenous plant sale, and we are now 9 News famous once again. We had 9 News out. There was Indigenous dancing, drumming, vendors, lots of plants went to new homes. And we also announced that our kitchen, which is part of the Wheat Ridge Center for Music and Arts, is open as a commercial kitchen. So that's very exciting, and we're very, very proud of that work. And we are accepting some new members. So if anyone knows of small food-based businesses, we've got some room for you to make your dreams happen. Secondly, our neighbors to the south, Edgewater, are celebrating, they're kicking off Pride. This Saturday, they're having a Pride kickoff party at 40 West Arts. It's going to be a great time, lots of good fun, and lots of art, lots of entertainment, just a really fun time to come together, celebrate in a very safe environment, and kick off Pride. And then lastly, Councilor Hoppy and I are hosting our District 1 meeting on Wednesday at Wheat Ridge United Methodist Church and the Center for Music and Arts there. That is at 7530 West 38th Avenue. That will be at 6 o'clock, and we hope everyone can join us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's good to be back. Sorry for missing the last two meetings. It just misaligned with some travel plans and then a business trip. So it's really good to be back. And prior to coming to council chambers this evening, I attended a Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival board meeting. So that this year will be August 9th, 10th, and 11th. It's, again, a 3-day festival. Fun for the entire family, fireworks, food vendors, carnival, circus, and a car show that supports the Wheat Ridge High School athletics. And I just want to let you know that the parade plate design contest is open. So if you are a Wheat Ridge artist and would like your artwork featured on the parade award plates, that is open and available. And we also are accepting nominations for our parade royalty until May 31st. So if you know a member of the community that has contributed a great deal and that you think should be honored by the Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival this year, please submit that nomination before May 31st. We are moving that timeline up a little bit this year because we like to feature them in the Neighborhood Gazette and want to allow ourselves enough time to write those articles. And I'm really excited to chair the parade again this year. It's been a wonderful time, and we've had several entries already register. So if you would like to be a part of the parade, that registration is also open. The city has had a really good show of support the last couple of years, which I've really appreciated. Many of our schools and local businesses are also featured in the parade, so it's a wonderful time for all. And please join us for our 55th annual Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival. Thanks.
Thank you. And just looking up at our plate display, we might have just room for one more plate up there, so we'll have to take the time to think about that. So, Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And following up on the discussion of the Wheat Ridge Police Department, I'd like to remind folks that next Wednesday, May 22nd, from 9 to 11 in the morning, the Wheat Ridge Police Department will host Cops in the Community, and all citizens of Wheat Ridge are encouraged to stop by and get to know members of the Wheat Ridge Police Department. Again, this is at the Rec Center next Wednesday, May 22nd, 9 to 11 a.m. And then I'm told that the police department will also be bringing back the Dog Walker Watch event. This is hosted by the crime prevention team, and it will begin probably in June. And I would look on social media for updates on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Rowland.
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully, those who could got out and saw the beautiful skies the other night, the wide rainbow of colors. I tried. It was a little too light for me, but I saw some amazing pictures. We did have a really good District 2 meeting at Happiness Gardens, and I believe it was Officer Reichslag. And I made sure that, I appreciate the, Chief Murtha having a police officer come to our district meeting. I don't know if all the other council members have police officers come to them, but I made that request, and I'm very happy I did. I made sure that I need to do a better job introducing a police officer to the citizens, because I want to make sure that this was not because I'm worried about safety at Happiness Gardens. This is really that, to kind of foster that community policing that Chief Murtha wants. And he did give some amazing testimony. He was very engaged. I think that's good to just keep doing that, keep building those relationships. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I just saw in the news that we had a Wheat Ridge native, Commander Matt Dominic, who's an astronaut, who's in the International Space Station right now. So we should be very, very proud of that. He's on the SpaceX Crew 8 missions. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Wheeler.
Thank you. I have taken the dog walker course, and it's really great. So I encourage any of you, if you haven't taken, your dog gets a little certificate and a bandana that you can walk around with. And it's not the badge that I wanted yet, but I'm getting closer. No, it's a great program, and I learned a ton about Neighborhood Watch and just how you can be more aware of your community and your neighborhood by walking your dog. I would like to announce that something that went away for a year is coming back. I will be working with Park and Rec this year to return the goat parade to, we will be walking the goats down 32nd to Lewis Meadows, and that will happen on the 29th of June. I will keep announcing it, but it will be a community call out. Anyone who wants to, it's always exciting putting a goat on a leash and trying to walk it, but the idea is to have a herd of people around the goats, and they like to walk with us. So more on that coming.
Very good. Thank you so much. Councilor Hoppy.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm really excited about the goat parade, and my kids will be excited about that too. I just want to, the mayor had a couple proclamations tonight, but our police officers in Wheat Ridge are amazing. I know you guys had one at your district meeting. We've all had them at ours, and every single, I think we've all had different police officers come to our different meetings, and they've all been phenomenal. So Chief Murtha and everybody who's working on the training are doing a phenomenal job. I also want to thank our Public Works Department. I know Public Works Week is coming up. Councilor Larson went and toured the Public Works Department and mentioned that I was interested in it. So I went a couple weeks ago, and Maria and the team gave me a tour of everything that they have going on there. It is an impressive outfit, and if you guys haven't gone yet as councilors, you guys should go and check out the facility down there. But 31 employees take care of everything, and that means they're all jumping in plow trucks. They're all doing all the different things. So they're an amazing group of people and do a phenomenal job for our city. I also want to recognize Jim Killey, who has been on our department staff since my grandfather was mayor, he told me, which is a long time. But I think he's retiring here soon. So he's done a phenomenal job for our city, and I just wanted to thank him and the rest of that team down there. Last week, I had the opportunity to stop by Wheat Ridge High School. Michelle Applegate, one of our new representatives on the school board, held a town hall meeting. She and the district staff that were there did a phenomenal job answering questions, both from teachers and staff members and the community as well. And I want to thank her for coming into Wheat Ridge and really helping to support our community and our schools. So that's a big part. Also this Saturday, personal achievement martial arts, but myself and our council partnership, the Wheat Ridge Coalition for Education, held a really cool event out at the green at Stevens Elementary School. Ninja Nation was there, so there was obstacle courses going on. The kids from all the local schools have been doing bingo for the last couple of weeks so that they could get a ticket to go on the obstacle course. And there was a steady trickle of kids all day long. So I don't know, a couple hundred kids, I think, got to participate in that. So really cool. I want to thank Liz Pacheco, Dominic Breton, and Lisa Denton for working really hard to put that together. So that's all I have tonight, Mr. Mayor. And if you can find it, you should find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Okay, well, you can find more and buy more in Wheat Ridge than you used to, because we've got a lot of great entrepreneurs in our city. I do ribbon cuttings all the time. I want to focus on a couple that are coming up on Wednesday, May the 15th. With the first one is about 11 a.m. with Beeline Medical Supply at 7777 West 38th Avenue, welcoming them to town. And also at 11:30, actually 12 p.m., a ribbon cutting for Antique Boutique. And that's located in the building that houses A1 Rental on 38th and about High Court, I think. And we're glad to have them there too. Some great shopping at both of those. I had a really wonderful session on Saturday morning at my coffee with the mayor. We must have had more than a dozen folks show up with some really engaging conversation. I want to thank them for being there. After that, I was really happy to go to the Wheat Ridge Historical Park down on 44th Avenue. They had their May Day celebration, but they have really done a lot of work with that park. I want to congratulate the Historical Society and the folks that have been working with them. They've done a lot of work with all of their old buildings, and there are some really marvelous ones, the Sadi and the Johnson Cabin, and just a lot of great history going on there, and a great group of people that are doing it. So I want to thank them. And I want to thank the folks that came to speak with us tonight. We always appreciate you coming and bringing your point of view, and it helps to inform the council. So we try to keep things open. If there's no more business to come before us in this meeting, we're going to just take a couple of minutes if we need it and have a special study session after that. So if there's no more business to come before this meeting, we will stand adjourned. And I think we'll take about 5 minutes and come back for our special study session. Thank you. the special study session for the City Council for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for May 13th, 2024. We have one study item on our session, on our agenda tonight as item number 1, the Lutheran Legacy Campus Height Limitations Survey Results. So, and before we get going with our presentation on that, we will start with, I have one speaker lined up to speak on this item, Mr. Larry Matthews. If you'd come to the podium and I guess just introduce yourself for the record and tell us whether you live or work in Wheat Ridge, and then you may speak on agenda item number study session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Larry Matthews, I live in Wheat Ridge. I had one item I didn't quite get to last time, so I'm not going to regurgitate everything else. We're talking about taking a lot of surveys in the future here to find out what the people want and what their preferences are. And one of the things that gave me a little heartburn as a counselor is we had a lot of surveys on a lot of zone change questions and other items, but we missed one important option. They might say, do you wish to see 5, 10 feet, or 30 feet? But we never had option D, none of the above. And that we need to make sure, and when I questioned the community director at that time, he said, well, just leave it blank and it'll be a no comment. But they never added up the no comments when they tallied all the results. So I think anytime you're giving people an option on a survey, there needs to be a D, none of the above, so that opinion can be expressed and surveyed and counted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go to Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we spoke about earlier, when we talked about the legislative rezoning, as you know, there was a master plan completed for the Lutheran Legacy Campus. One of the recommendations besides the rezoning was to make the vision come to fruition. One recommendation was to consider removing the restriction on height on the Lutheran Legacy Campus. As a reminder, in Wheat Ridge, our city charter right now restricts height for residential buildings to 35 feet and commercial buildings to 50 feet. We have removed some of those restrictions. If you remember, several years ago, we went to the vote of the voters, and they approved a ballot question to remove those restrictions from certain urban renewal areas in the community. But the Lutheran Legacy Campus does fall under that charter restriction. So we did receive direction from City Council based on the master plan to do a survey to poll our residents to see what type of support there was for removing the height restriction. So we contracted with Magellan Strategies, and you may remember Ryan Winger is here this evening. He was with us just last summer, I guess, last spring, where we did some surveying on our bond question. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. He's got a presentation for you this evening on the results of the survey.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick, and thanks, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all again. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Again, as you heard, this was a survey that was aimed at gathering public opinion on a charter amendment dealing with the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan. And over on the left there, you'll see an example of the text message that went out to registered voters in Wheat Ridge. City would like to invite you to participate in this survey. We really want to hear from you, and informing them this would be regarding removing height restrictions from portions of the Lutheran Legacy Campus. This was conducted from April 30th through May 9th. And we were able to complete over 1,000 interviews. 1,043 residents responded to the survey, which is a great number, especially in such a short period of time. So that gives us a pretty high degree of confidence with the margin of error of 2.97%. And also importantly, these results are weighted to match the city's expected voter turnout demographics for a presidential election year, which this year, of course, is. And so I know that may be kind of hard to see, but we've got a red box there around what we anticipate, at least our demographics to be similar to the last presidential election, which was in 2020. And so you see there just how the survey is weighted based upon the districts, based upon gender, age, and party affiliation. Again, we're just trying to make sure that we're accurately representing who's actually going to vote come November. And so before we started introducing specifics about the Lutheran Legacy Campus, we just wanted to kind of have what we call some icebreaker questions, just to kind of get their minds going in the direction of, okay, let's talk about what's going on in the city. A question that we typically ask is, do you think things in Wheat Ridge are headed in the right direction, or do you feel things are off on the wrong track? And the reason why we wanted to ask that for this specific survey is that we may find some kind of underlying concerns that may impact how someone would think about this proposed charter amendment. And what we found here is 54% said right direction, 24% wrong track, 22% no opinion. So nothing really to be too concerned about there. We always say that anything that's a 2-to-1 right direction, wrong track is a good ratio. And anytime you're over 50% is a pretty good place to be. You see there over on the right, I won't dwell on these too much, but those are just kind of important subgroups within the city. But we didn't really want to leave it there. We wanted to ask these respondents, in this case 559 of them, why do you think that things are headed in the right direction? And these are all kind of related, but you see things like infrastructure and urban development. They appreciate the improvements that are going on around the city. They appreciate a rise in local businesses, restaurant shops, small enterprises. They believe that's important and they want to see that continue. They feel that there is a strong level of community engagement and inclusivity. They are appreciative of development of new housing options, while also it's important to note, kind of expressing concerns about very high density housing. So the focus seems to be for these folks who believe that the city's on the right direction, believing that the city is currently balancing growth with the character of the city very well. And then those quality of life enhancements, things like improvements in public spaces, parks, and rec facilities are obviously also mentioned as well when we ask a question like this. Among those who think the city is off on the wrong track, again, this is 254 respondents, overdevelopment and high density, so just concerns about the rate and pace of development. And so these are all, again, very related, loss of community feel and local identity that comes with that, and also the increased traffic and inadequate infrastructure. They don't feel that the city is perhaps adequately prepared to handle what's going to come with these changes. And again, planning issues and quality of life concerns, it all kind of relates to that top theme of overdevelopment, or at least a concern about the pace of development for these folks. We then wanted to ask just a second kind of icebreaker question again. Do you approve or disapprove of the job the city is doing providing services to city residents, just in a very general sense? And 68% is a great number. Only 18% disapprove, 14% no opinion. So again, there's nothing really there that would maybe kind of bleed into a conversation about the charter amendment. And so let's get into kind of shifting gears here. So thinking now about the Lutheran Legacy Campus. Did you know that in August 2024, the hospital is moving to the Clear Creek Crossing development? A lot of familiarity with this development. Obviously, 85% said yes, 15% said no, I wasn't aware of that. So just kind of something to keep in the back of your mind going forward. It's not 100%, but it's a very high level of awareness for what's going on with that move. Then as we get into a little bit more specifics about the master plan itself, how familiar are you with that master plan, which lays out a vision for the campus? And only 7% very familiar, 20% somewhat familiar. The largest group here, nearly half, said not too familiar, right? So these are respondents who, as they're going to go about completing this survey, are starting from a place where they really don't have a ton of detail about the specifics of the master plan. And then you have another 25% who say not familiar at all. So clearly there's a lot of room for growth in terms of educating these folks about what's in the master plan, what's not in the master plan, kind of like we talked about before, kind of dispelling those rumors that are out there. We also just wanted to ask in general, did you know that the city limits development height in most areas of the city? 59% are aware of that. 41% said, no, I actually wasn't aware of that. And so that's kind of an important piece given what we're about to get into with the master plan. And so here's the information that was given them before we asked kind of a ballot question that would be a charter amendment. Before we continue, it's important to know we haven't made this decision. We really want to hear from you. And then explaining to them the Lutheran Legacy Campus master plan and that process, how the site is currently zoned, and that therefore there would have to be a zoning change and an amendment to the city charter in order to fully realize the vision outlined in that master plan. And so then we were going to ask them to read a potential amendment to the city charter, which was this, pretty short and succinct. The building height limitations of the charter shall not apply to that area described as mixed use in the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan adopted August 25th, 2021, specifically shown on page 51 of the plan. This shall not modify any current zoning on the property unless and until approved, or unless and until modified through future ordinances approved by City Council after public hearings. So I know if you're familiar with ballot language, it's sad to say, but that's actually pretty good. A lot of ballot language gets a lot more confusing and a lot more legalese than that. So that's kind of as straightforward as you can make this. And we have 42% who would say they would vote yes, 48% who say they would vote no, and 10% undecided. And you see some real differences there across the subgroups, particularly those who have lived less than 10 years in the city. They're much more likely to be supportive. And also you see their District 3, which is, I don't think, too surprising. They are much lower in terms of supporting this, given that that's where this is taking place, is in District 3. And so this is kind of our starting point before we've given them any more information about the proposed charter amendment, just nothing beyond the language of it. And we're starting with 42% voting yes, 48% voting no. Then we're going to share information about the campus, why the amendment being considered, and asking, after you hear these pieces of information, please tell us if you're more likely to vote yes or more likely to vote no. And the master plan, so this is the piece of information that tested the best in terms of somewhat resonating with the respondents. The master plan calls for a number of community and civic focused amenities such as open space, parkland, restoration of historic structures and other civic uses, and explained that it won't be financially feasible to provide these without allowing taller development in the interior of the property. And so after reading that, 64% are more likely to approve the charter amendment. And again, but just for context, basically what we consider to be a solid piece of information that's likely to move these votes is anything over 60%. So the other piece that was over 60% was just that reassurance that the height of new buildings would not exceed the height of the current hospital. Because up to this point, they didn't really know that basic fact about what was being considered. Okay, knowing that, then they can at least, visualize, okay, I know how tall the hospital is. That kind of helps me, get my mind right in terms of what we're talking about here. And then currently the city charter limits height for residential buildings at 35 feet and 50 feet. Current Lutheran Hospital is approximately 100 feet. Knowing that information, only 52% are more likely to approve, but it's still a good piece of information to have out there. And then again, the amendment would only apply to the interior of the Lutheran campus, would not apply to the perimeter of the campus or other areas of Wheat Ridge. 49% are more likely to approve after learning that. And here we also did take the opportunity to show kind of a diagram there of basically this is taken from the master plan, showing mixed use areas that we said shaded in purple in exchange for keeping lower heights and open space on the perimeter shaded in yellow, adjacent to existing neighborhoods. So we talked about this a little bit before, but we did want to give the survey respondents a chance to say, to at least visualize and see, knowing that most of them were not super familiar with the master plan. Here's kind of a core document of the master plan that's actually referenced in the ballot language, and only 48% are more likely to approve. So what that shows me is that, yeah, this has some level of detail in it, but it doesn't really have the right level of detail. It doesn't talk about the height of the buildings or certain things like that they find to be more relevant. So, and then we asked again the exact same question, the exact same language as before. How would you vote now that you've heard or read all this information? And support moves to 53%. If you remember before, it was at 42%. So right now we're at 53% voting yes, only 37% voting no, still that 10% undecided. So you see here that we're able to, just basically by giving basic facts about it, when you're starting with, a relatively low level of information among these respondents, nearly half of them saying they're not too familiar, and another quarter of them saying they're not at all familiar. This kind of shows, okay, this is what's maybe possible with that kind of education. And again, you see there are differences certainly among considering the tenure in the city. Those who live less than 10 years are still far more likely to be supported. And you do still see their District 3 is only 41% yes. So it's kind of an outlier among the 4 districts, but that did move up from 29%. And so they were able to again, understand better exactly what's being proposed. Again, we didn't want to necessarily leave it there. We asked why they would vote yes. And the number one thing that came up was the height and scale of the buildings. So they expressed that they were concerned going into the survey about the heights, and those in favor cited that the fact that they knew that new buildings would not exceed the height of the current hospital structure, that was something that really resonated with them and they felt was important to know. And they thought, okay, that's reasonable. Also just cited the economic and community benefits of this plan. Many cited also the need for more housing, simply preservation of open spaces in historical areas. Once they had that assurance that that was going to be part of this plan, that was important for them to know. But then also they just believe that, with proper planning and development, it just could be a better, improved infrastructure and planning all around, which would allow for this increased density without compromising their quality of life. Among those 383 that would vote no, here are their concerns, things like community character and aesthetic concerns, infrastructure and traffic concerns, development impact on local environment and lifestyle, mistrust of developers and city planning, and a lack of clear and detailed development plans. So some of them obviously just need more information, but there's a lot of concern here about the way in which these proposed changes to the charter amendment would impact the community character specifically there in that area in District 3. We also always ask to those undecided voters, in this case 10% of the voters were undecided, which way they're leaning. And what's interesting here is we usually see it mostly split between the yes and the no, but we actually do have 34% of them are leaning towards voting no, 18% leaning towards voting yes, and 48% say, yeah, I'm still undecided. Again, I think it just shows that a lot of folks just need a little bit more information about what's being proposed before they can begin to consider voting yes. And here's the demographics, which again, where possible, we weighted these to match what we expect turnout to be on things like gender, age, party affiliation. There you see the split between renters versus owners. That might be relevant for something like this. Race, ethnicity, demographics, and income, and marital status, tenure, likely to vote, things like that. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, question. Thank you very much. Questions from council? Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you go back just the 3 slides to the one where the leaning slide? Right there. Can you explain how you asked that question again for me? Because
yeah, so actually to do that, I'll scroll up to this one. So this 10% right here got a follow-up question that said, if you had to decide today, do you lean towards voting yes and approving, or do you lean toward voting no and rejecting? So only 10% of the sample is getting this question, but of those 10%, 18% lean towards yes, 34 lean towards no, and a plurality of them, the largest group say, I'm still undecided. I don't lean one way or another.
Sure. Yeah, I thank you for that. I think that this is actually quite positive news for us, and I'm glad that we went and did the outreach on it. It definitely shows that there's some education pieces need to happen, especially because I was actually surprised at how many people said that they had no idea about the plans when we spent so much time and in so many different ways talking to people to build the master plan. But yeah, 47%, I was really surprised by that. But I appreciate the work. I'm glad we went ahead and did this, and I think it is a pretty positive outcome. Thank you.
Councilor Rome.
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you for this information. This is great. Looking at all the data and showing us, trying to pose different questions is really, really helpful. The only question I really had is if someone wasn't looking at the graphic, and when you asked them about the height of the hospital, do you think they understood the height being, 100 feet versus if they're thinking about it visually, if they're standing, on the top of the campus or on 38th and you see the hospital, do they understand that when you're saying like the height of the hospital, if we took that, right now it's basically down, it's down low. It's on the lowest part of the site on 38. If that was taking to anywhere on that top elevation, that they understand that that is that height, 100 feet.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm sure some understand that, some don't. I think it's just what was helpful for them to know, and you kind of saw it in the verbatims as to why they would vote yes on the informed ballot, is just knowing that we're not talking about something that is dramatically taller than that hospital building. It's more just kind of a way to provide that context for them, like, hey, you know how tall the hospital is now? It's not going to exceed that height. But you're right. Some folks may be more familiar with exactly the layout than others. So,
Counselor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is more of a question of staff. So a lot of this information tells us that upon more education and dispelling some of those rumors, because I think we can plan on having a pretty robust opposition campaign, like what kind of education pieces are going to be, used throughout this process, and what kind of information and marketing are you anticipating doing?
Yeah, if that's the direction we receive from city council, we didn't have the final results when the packet went out to you, so we didn't have strong recommendations either way in there. But based on what you heard tonight, and I think we do have some recommendations. And the good news is, if we do get direction to move forward, we have many opportunities coming up this year with all the planning efforts that we have going on with the city plan, the Parks and Rec master plan, the economic development strategy, several other planning efforts. Of course, we have, as you know, we've beefed up our community engagement programs and outlets over the last couple of years with What's Up Wheat Ridge and such. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to educate the community more. Lauren might be able to add to that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. We'd use all of our sort of traditional and social media from June through October. There's a public meeting of some sort almost every 3 weeks. So we'll try to be as present as possible to talk about, sometimes a bigger booth and sometimes just a person and some postcards. But we've very much recognize that we need to be visible with basic facts about what has happened and what could happen. So our plan is to do that through every possible medium, in person, print, social, providing, you get a lot of the emails from our team of please share this on social media, or here's a postcard you can have to your next public meeting. So everything we can think of, I think would be worth it in this case.
Thank you. Counselor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have, I guess, a different interpretation of this. My experience with polling on ballot initiatives is you want to feel confidently closer to 60 going into things. Barely, like not even breaking 50, even with some optimistic education gets us closer. I'm not encouraged by these polling results about where this is. And I am encouraged a little bit of education goes a long way, but to Councilmember Hoppy's point, we did a lot of education, and it was really the only thing going on at the city when we were doing the Lutheran campus, and that didn't register with people. And I have a lot of concerns. We are going into a presidential election year, and it is going to be, people are going to be bombarded with information about stuff. And I appreciate the opportunity to come alongside the city plan for engagement, but we'll be engaging the same people over and over again. And the ability, I think, to reach the people who haven't been reached is going to be actually steeper in the next 4 to 5 months than it would be in an average year. And so I have concerns that the numbers are not super, like if we were at 60 in this, I would feel a lot better that some education on behalf of the city, and then whatever issue committees pop up and do their work, like that we'd be able to garner the attention around the nuances of this. But I'm concerned that in the political environment and just what's going to be grabbing people's attention, that I think it's just going to be a little bit tough. And and I know one of the questions coming forth is like, is there more polling that we could do, or is there something that we could understand better to give us confidence in this? And again, because the stuff wasn't in the packet, I honestly would have to think a little bit. But I just, like, I've done a lot of work in the polling realm, and they want to see closer to 60 to feel confident. And so I'm a little concerned about where the numbers are. I'm enthused that a little bit of education goes a long way, but we would really have to have a lot of confidence. And that's in the face of us also updating our comp plan and all of these other plans and getting in front of people. And how does that stand out from all of the other things we're engaging people around? And I just think we'd have to really be like realistic and cognizant of that, and that we can do the work, but is it going to actually hit people and retain with them in a way that they're getting that contextual information? So that is my off the cuff response.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess I would ask Magellan, with results like that, where would you guys go with your next step?
Yeah, so I mean, you're definitely right. You would typically want to see something in the high 50s to 60 range to feel super confident moving forward. I will say that this is a little bit different because, you know, many ballot measures, you know, have some kind of financial impact on voters, right? Which this one doesn't. And so when you want to see that really kind of, like you said, 60 or above, it's because you're, you know, worried about a crowded ballot or worried about an economic downturn or the kind of things that can make someone less likely to approve a tax increase. Since this isn't a tax increase, I think that alleviates that concern a little bit. But I'm with you. What's most encouraging is that the numbers moved by 11 points, but it is a little bit concerning that they only moved to 53%. I would say that there's even more potential for upside, though, because of the lack of familiarity among voters with this plan, right? And so that's, you know, it's pretty unusual to have something where it's 27%, or like if you're talking about other city services like the police or fire or any other things, you're going to have a much higher level of just familiarity with what's going on, right? And so, you know, it's kind of just it's just a factor of, if you go up to here to the demographics, I mean, 20,000 people are going to vote in Wheat Ridge this November. It's very hard to get that level of engagement to where 20,000 people are going to be super familiar with the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan. And so, you know, it is a large ask to say, we need all of you to be intimately familiar with this. But, you know, I would say it's not too large an ask to say, here's kind of some bullet points, here's the basics of what we're talking about and why this is important for the city. You know, to me, there's certain, again, if it was a tax question and the most we could get to see was 53%, I would say it's probably not going to happen. I do kind of put this in a little bit of a different category, while also acknowledging, like you said, there's probably going to be organized opposition as well that you have to account for. So,
Okay.
Sorry if that was clear.
No, that I mean, that absolutely answers the question. And I guess it's just a matter of us deciding is, you know, this is kind of one of those Wheat Ridge ballot questions. Like last year we got off a little easy when, you know, 70% of people, but that's not how Wheat Ridge usually goes. Wheat Ridge is usually 49-49 and a bloody fight to the other 2%, you know, and you know, I do, just given some of the comments tonight, feel like there's probably going to be some opposition. And I, you know, given the comments tonight where they want open space, they want preserving the buildings, all that, I feel like the opposition is going to be somewhat kicking themselves in the rear on this because they're literally going to be arguing against being able to have open space and parks and things that are already on that property. Because if we don't do this height thing, and this is, again, I will reiterate, this is not height and density, right? This is just height, right? So we're not adding density to this site. We're just taking the density that would be there, pulling it inward, right? And moving it up so that we can have more space for parks, public amenities, city hall, whatever, right? So I feel like it's an ask from not only our planning department and the staff, but if we move forward with this, this is an ask of the council to get out there and be knocking on doors and all that stuff, because we, again, had it pretty easily with 2J because there wasn't any organized opposition, and I think most people were very for it, but this is going to have organized opposition from both the neighborhood and from people who are just anti-growth or anti-change or whatever it is. And I think we've seen that before, that we have to make sure that we're out there as much or more giving that truth. The other question that I had, and we didn't address it a couple of study sessions ago, was that we had talked about putting ballot language on this charter, or charter language on this, to clean up the charter stuff with the sexes, things like that. And we never actually decided to move that forward or not. So I guess I have that question for us too, if we decide to move that forward or not, because staff asked me after that last meeting and we never had decided as a council if we were going to move that forward or not. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple comments. The first is I want to go back to what Councilor Hulteen was speaking about, and I too have some background with polling and statistics, and I'm concerned that with these numbers, doing this in a major election year where it's going to be, we all know it's going to be a contentious run up to this election, and people tend to sort of weaponize their vote, if that makes sense, whatever they feel, and so they tend to sort of vote across the board because of this emotional feeling. And I think, you know, it's kind of like placing a bet. And so, you know, obviously the people who feel one way hope that everybody does it this way, and the people who feel opposite hopes that everybody does it that way. And so I think we have a really big uphill battle, because we are giving information to people on top of information that they're already struggling with. I mean, I know all of us in the room are already struggling, regardless of where you are politically, on this atmosphere that we're all in this year. So I question taking that risk of placing that bet. I'm not a betting person very often, but I would say the lottery is actually a better bet than betting on this year, if that makes sense, if you are a gambler. So that's my first point, is that I think while we could get out there and educate and all of those things, we have a whole nother level of something that's pushing down on us. And that people just sort of shut down. Sorry, I just turned in my grades at the end of the semester, and I know how people just get shut down. And so I've been dealing with students in that place for the last 2 weeks. My second point is that these survey results for me really said that there is some other education that isn't happening. And this has been a line of conversation that we've all had for several years, which is there is a perception about this process, and specifically about this property. This is not public property. This is private property that we are in the process with, but we don't have all the choices. We don't have a complete choice to just say, hey, this is parkland, because we don't own it. And we'd have to buy it if we wanted it to be all parkland. And I don't think the city can afford to buy 110 acres in the middle of the city, as nice as that would be. So I feel like there's some of the misperception is that there is more power on the city side than we actually have, and how the engagement process works as far as educating people that we have an opportunity here, but deciding not to decide isn't actually one of them. And that piece, I think, needs some education as well. And maybe there's sort of a 2-year plan where we start thinking about how to teach about that process. Because I happen to be one of the people selected to take the survey. And I read surveys pretty closely, and even I sort of got into my head about it about height and density. And I had a really hard time with the conversation in my head, even though I've been sitting in all of these conversations. So I feel like we have to go really deep with people who we're in a year that are not really prepared to go really deep. And I feel like there's some low-hanging fruit that we could deal with this year before maybe, I don't know what the answer is. Those are my 2 comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Hoppy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, timing wise, that's another piece that we have to consider is timing. 2 years is not, Lutheran is trying to get this out, like they've already got it out on the market. 2 years is going to be too far down the road. We're going to end up with some projects that we might not want to really like to see on that property, you know. So I just wonder if, okay, so we did have a really good big pass on the 2J tax bill, but we had to really work on it the first time, and we got out there and we worked on it, and it had a good pass also, right? So I know what can happen if we get out there and work on it and educate people. And so I just wonder if, Patrick, do you think it's something where maybe we could work on some education pieces and then maybe come back in July and try to do another survey? I really think that this year is the year that this needs to happen. And as far as when you start looking at how the dominoes fall in the future for that property, for that piece of property. And so I just wonder if maybe, could we maybe just do some outreach and then maybe resurvey, or what do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah, maybe to address a few of the comments I've heard. I think there is a risk in waiting for another election. As you mentioned, Intermountain Health has this out on the market. They're hoping to have a new master developer on site by the end of the year. If this piece is not decided soon, nothing's probably going to happen on this campus for quite some time. And honestly, I think presidential elections are the best elections to go to with a question like this, because you have the highest turnout. You have the highest turnout of some of the demographics that we saw that said they would support this. So I think that's a benefit in my mind. I think we learned a lot also from the themes that were generated from this. Some of the things we heard, I think if we wanted to go back, educate, I think maybe if we did a second round survey, maybe we ask about, or we give specific height levels. So we say 5 stories, 6 stories. We just don't know. We're not developing the property. We've been hearing from developers, Lauren and I, we've been meeting with over the last several months. 5 to 6 stories is probably all they need, which is well below the current height of the hospital. Maybe that's a question we ask to get some certainty. If people had more certainty, if it's not going to be higher than 6 stories, maybe we have to go there. So yes, I think I think 53%. I didn't think it was going to be much better than that. I'm actually surprised it's that high, honestly, this first go around. So I'm a little optimistic. I agree. It needs to be. I don't have comfort unless it's over 60. I've done tons of polling and surveys myself. And honestly, too, I don't think 20% of people being familiar with the master plan is all that low. Get it? Come on. People aren't paying attention to master plans in your community, right? And we worked very, very hard to engage as many people as we could. I think 20%, 27% is actually a fairly large number. You're not going to get much more than that who are going to say they're very familiar with their master plan of a 100-acre piece of property that's not even close to them, probably, right? So I think there's more positives here than not. I think I would not be comfortable going to the vote right now, but I think an effort to educate the community a little bit more, do a survey in July, come up with some maybe different specific questions. And I think it's doable. But Lauren, maybe you want to speak about the development opportunities?
Yeah, well, the
Only other thought I had too that I think is a moment in time that we won't get back is the hospital actually moving, I think is going to capture people's attention for a second enough to maybe educate folks, and we won't have that chance again. That will happen on August 3rd at 6 a.m. So after the July polling, but still kind of this pivotal moment, even if it's just a crazy blitz of education on that day about the move and what's going to happen. I think you bring a good point up, Councilmember Weaver, about sort of the opportunity cost. We don't like to communicate in a way that seems like a threat, like if this, then that. And it's still probably realistic to say if this doesn't proceed, then the future is even more unknown than if it does. And I think we can articulate that hopefully in a way that doesn't feel as scary or threatening, because it is an opportunity cost that we have to choose. No action or voting no is a choice that has a different outcome, and we can try to articulate that in a neutral way as well.
Thank you for that. And then can I ask, can we go to the slide, the after education slide?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to take one more look at it. And can we get this slideshow? Can we?
Just came in.
Yeah, because, you know, when Patrick, you made a really good point about, like, if you look at the demographics and you look at now in the informed ballot test where those demographics are ticking upwards, I think that is a pretty good trend that we see there. But so, you know, I think that, I don't think we dropped this cold in the water. I don't think it's time. I don't think we've even flushed it out quite enough. And so I would like to see us maybe do some education and re-poll in July.
Thank you. Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for Magellan at this point, real quick. I don't have the depth of experience in surveying and whatnot, and so can you tell me a little bit about, when we talk about the method, why we use MMS instead of something a little more outward?
Yeah, what do you mean by outward?
Calling people.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, it's really the trend that we found in the last really 5 years is that the efficacy of calling someone on the phone and completing even as, and we've done much longer, more complex surveys than this, but even a survey of this length where you're actually talking to someone and you're completing the survey over the phone with them, the response rates to that kind of survey have dropped to where they're basically below 1%. No one really even answers the phone anymore unless they know exactly who's calling.
I needed to hear you say that.
Okay. Well, so and so that's why, right? And so we could call voters and tell, you know, we're blue in the face and hire a call center. And that's the other thing. It is more expensive, right? You have to hire a call center that has, you know, live callers, you know, dialing thousands of numbers in order to complete dozens of interviews. And so just as kind of like a value proposition, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And so that is why, and what we've really found is that, you know, the concern that some folks have is, oh, you know, you're missing out on the older voters that are less likely to participate via a text survey, a survey to their cell phone. And what we found is that that's actually not the case at all. They're more than comfortable, many of them, taking surveys over the phone. Really what we struggle more with is just getting younger voters engaged in municipal issues. There's just generally, and this is not specific to Wheat Ridge at all, but just generally a lower interest among those younger voters who maybe just, you know, have other things on their minds and other things going on. And so really what we see is that, and that's why we weight the data on the back end to match what we expect turnout to be. But it's not as if we're missing large segments of the population by conducting a survey this way.
Would, for a topic like this, would focus grouping not be appropriate?
Sure. So a focus group actually for something like this, where you could, you know, blow up images of the master plan and get more qualitative data. Sure, it could be useful. We kind of, attempt to do a little bit of both within this survey. So you'll see we do have a lot of qualitative data for questions like this. So we're kind of trying to get a nice mix of the two, but a focus group where you could go more in depth with folks may be useful. I just think that the downside of it is that you still are looking at nearly 20,000 people voting. And so it's hard to really draw too much conclusions from a focus group of 12 to 15 people or whatever.
The other issue, and this goes back to the demographics, your figure of 37% of the people that responded said they rent. And
Yes.
most of the other data you'll see on Wheat Ridge specifically is that the level of renters versus home ownership is there are quite a few more renters. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some way to weight the survey. The other issue I have is with on the household income. It indicates that the sort of the dividing line is $75,000 a year person or family income. And your survey shows that most of the people, 55%, 2 to 1, earn more than $75,000 a year. And it just seems a little skewed against the people on the lower income side.
Sure. Yeah, I can speak to both of those. So this rent versus own, I believe, I'm trying to think back. I think we've weighted this based off the American Community Survey, which has a statistic for owner-occupied households. So yeah, we may, renting may be bumped up a little bit higher. I do think it is a majority if we're looking at rent versus own, a majority still are owners when we're talking about voters in Wheat Ridge. And maybe that's a little bit of where the discrepancy is maybe some of those renters aren't registered to vote yet, or they haven't taken that step. And
so if somebody responded that they were not registered to vote, they would not be qualified to take the survey?
No, so they still could. They're in this 1% other. So basically that's someone who is either with another party or is not registered to vote. And so what I will say is that someone who's not registered to vote is very unlikely to complete this survey. Just demographically, someone who hasn't taken that step is probably unlikely to engage with the survey at this level. And yeah, to your point on income, we are probably high on this. What do we have here? 43% that are in that 100 to more than 200 range. 17% prefer not to say, so we kind of have to set them aside. So yeah, we're probably a little bit high on the income. But honestly, in terms of work that we've done in the past, that's even here in Wheat Ridge, that turned out to be very accurate last year. I don't think, we're not dramatically far off in terms of this income split as well when we're talking about who's actually going to vote come November.
Okay, and then one last question. The narrative does describe one of the issues for the people that would vote against, that they simply don't trust the government and developers to do the right thing. What would you recommend you do to address that?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that, I obviously don't want to paint with a broad brush at all, but a lot of those folks, if they lived anywhere up and down the Front Range, would be concerned about the level of development that's going on. So this isn't necessarily a problem specific to Wheat Ridge, although some of them may have very specific concerns, especially if they do live in District 3, where we see support is lower. So yeah, they're going to point to specific decisions made by the city. And so it's really just a matter of, when you do hear those concerns from them, trying to explain, okay, why, first of all, the kind of public hearings and outreach that happened before those decisions were made, right? So they're not made in some, smoke-filled back rooms, but also just letting them know, okay, here's the reasons why we consider those to be in the community's best interest. And, sometimes you honestly do just have to agree to disagree on the level of development within, cities. And we see that a lot here up and down the Front Range. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for answering all of these questions and providing this detail. I look forward to having this PowerPoint And initially, I was concerned about these numbers and would agree that I wouldn't feel very confident in taking something of this nature to the ballot, just given pure statistics. However, I do agree with Patrick that a presidential election tends to be when have the best turnout and when voters are the most engaged. And I think it will provide the best opportunity for our community to weigh in on what they actually want to see in the future. And if we do not move forward with this year, I think it would be too little too late, because and I think the opportunity in doing the legislative zone change and all of the plans and the robust public input engagement that we already have in order for the next year, 6 months, would provide us the best opportunity to engage and educate the public to the level in which I think that something like this would need, that we wouldn't have any following years. So I think I personally would like to see this move forward to this year's ballot and really have that robust education and public input process and come alongside the legislative rezoning and then the comprehensive plan, economic development plan, because I think that if we don't capture this opportunity now, we're going to lose it. And I don't think that we would be able to engage the community at the level in which something of this nature would need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe we should move forward putting this on the ballot this year. If we want to do some more polling, maybe for some of the language and some of the things that we should focus on, I think that might be a good idea. But I do believe we should move this to the ballot this year because it is a presidential election year, because there's going to be more people voting. We'll have more of an opportunity to get out and speak to people with all of the opportunities. And I do understand that people will have, that will be hitting some of the same people over and over again. But I think that's where, when it comes to October, November, getting out, knocking on doors and all that stuff, is a big part of that, and making sure that people understand what they're voting on. So moving forward this year, I think, is the best option for us, because if we wait, next year's election is a council mayor election. So I believe that entire election will be based on Lutheran. And I don't think that that's something that we want to do as a city, is base something so pivotal on an election year like that. So I think this is the year where there's no stress on candidates or any of that other stuff. This is a specific issue for this city, where we'll have most of the eyes of the city looking at it. And I think that this is the right time to move forward with the education and the engagement around all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you. Sorry, I was definitely a little bit of a downer, but I just wanted to be really clear on what we're flagging as risks for me. I think with 2J, first of all, the polling was like just shockingly accurate. Not shockingly, I mean appropriately, professionally accurate. One of the big differences is 2J, the message was, we're investing citywide and these dollars are going to show up down the street from you in a benefit that you've asked us for. And this ballot question is really geographically like isolated in the city. And so I think one of the challenges that we really need to integrate in what we're doing between now and another round of polling is, how do we couple the message that this is good for the city and we're not just talking about like one property, which is essentially what we're doing. And I think we can really harness what is continued good news in our polling, is that our citizens generally thinking we're doing the right thing and going in the right direction. And so we really have an opportunity to harness momentum of successes and a general perception that, and we on the dais get some credit for that, staff get some credit for that, our citizens get some credit for that. But in general, there is a perception that we're doing the right thing. So I think we need to be not just educating, but putting that education in the context of a continuance of, the listening and investing in our city and our citizens, because it's really got to have a universal appeal, because people in District 1, you know, some of them don't, never even cross Wadsworth, you know, I mean, they do occasionally, but, so I think, yeah, so I think we really have to be thinking of this in the context of like a universal benefit for the city. And to that end, to Mayor Pro Tem Stites' question, if this goes forward to the ballot, which I do support, I mean, opportunity cost, if we put it to ballot and it loses, it's a bigger loss than waiting a year. So I think we just can't not have that as part of the conversation. But I would be much more inclined to also have another ballot question about charter cleanup, because that is universal and that is something that affects everybody and draws attention to what our charter says and does, like impacts people, and it gives us another point of engagement with people that we're doing things in the charter that we think are bringing our city to alignment with where we are today and where we want to be moving forward. So I would more strongly support a second charter ballot initiative question. To, again, just, I think it would broaden the scope of what we're talking about and help create some relevance. So, and then I just want to say, as the person who did a lot of the 2J walking, I mean, we really are going to have to get behind it. I mean, it's a lot of time to get out and walk and knock and have those conversations citywide. So we need to be willing to put our time behind it. And I will take that seriously this fall. But anyway, those are just my thoughts on moving forward. But I do think doing some additional outreach and checking back in July will really help us understand what we would need to do to be successful from July to November.
Thank you, Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to echo some of the things that my colleagues have said. I definitely think this is the time to move ahead with this. I do appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Stites and Councilmember Hulting bringing up the charter language. I know that's kind of a different subject, but also that's important, and I do feel like that needs to move ahead as well. This process, I'm thinking about everything that we've got going on, city plan update, Parks and Rec, and this, that puts a lot on staff, and staff does an amazing job. I have no doubt this is something that they will rise to, but just throwing that out there, that if there's anything that, you know, I know that we will be doing our own walking and campaigning and staying in touch with each other on that, but just a lot to put on staff, but obviously it's very necessary. But anything that we can do to take some of that off or anything like that, it's a big effort, and we're a team. So yes, that's basically what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had a pretty robust discussion. I think we've had an opportunity for everyone to weigh in on this. I think I'd like to see whether we have a consensus to move this forward, to do some more education and some more testing later in the year, and then be able to make a decision on that. Does that give you the information you need?
That does. We'll put a plan together on how to do further engagement, and then we'll come back sometime July-ish and get confirmation from council if you want to move forward with another poll. Okay. And go from there.
Councilor Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask too, so can we get a consensus then to move forward to start looking at a second charter ballot question? And, you know, we can, obviously we make that decision on if we're going to put it on the ballot later on down the road at a business meeting, but can we get a consensus to start looking at that?
Looks like we have that also. Anything else that we need to address in this item number one?
That's all staff needs tonight. Thank you very much
Okay.
for the conversation.
Thank you very much. Nice, good discussion. Thank you all. We will now go to staff reports. Mr. Goff.
Nothing else this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any further elected officials? Ms. Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So following that Lutheran discussion, we actually did have something really exciting with the new Lutheran facility. They reached substantial completion with their construction on May 8th, and so Lutheran actually received the keys from the project manager to the hospital, and so we are on track to open August 3rd, which is really exciting. I've had the opportunity to tour the new facility with donors. It's gorgeous, state of the art, and really, really patient centered for care. So really excited to see that open in the next few months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further from council? Okay, we will be back here in another week
Next Monday with,
Next
for
Monday with
presiding judge interviews.
with another study session. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We will stand adjourned.